Give it up for Bryan, Duane, Chris, John, and Andrew, the reality of 100% renewable generation.
Fancy.
Yeah.
Fancy. Gorgeous view.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's great to be here. I'm John Creyts. I'm a Mountain Town resident, and I lead an institute called the Rocky Mountain Institute. We are an independent nonprofit that has been helping to drive clean energy solutions here for the past 40 years, and proud to be over in Snowmass, not far from here is where we originated. You heard yesterday from Mark Jacobson a bit of the context and a lot of numbers around how important the power sector is to the energy transition and how quickly we can make change happen. I think today what we're going to hear is from some of the guys that are making change happen and putting the real steel in the ground, signing the real contracts, and helping advance the solutions that we need to have resilient towns, to have economic growth in our communities, but also to make sure that we're providing the infrastructure that we need for a sustainable future for everybody. And so I'm super excited to be joined by 4 folks here that have intimate experience with the solutions we need in order to get further, faster together. I'm just going to jump right in because I don't want to waste any time here. But Chris, you know, as the CEO of Plata Electric, you're somebody who has been at the forefront here thinking about how we get to 100% renewables on your system. Just talk a little bit about where you are in the journey and maybe share a little bit of your success with the folks here.
Yeah, thanks very much. It's great to be with everyone. Chris Hansen from Plata Electric, and live in Durango, Colorado now. And I've got just a couple of maps I was going to share. I've, like many of you in the room, I'm kind of a visual learner, and so I was going to share a couple of those. If we could bring up the first one, this kind of helps tell the story that we're all in the middle of. This first slide, if we can get that on the screen, is a map of kind of the regionalization of our grids across the U.S. I don't know if there we go, up on the screen. So if you're not an electricity geek like all of us on the stage, you may not know that the U.S. actually has 3 different grids. And the first one is the Eastern Interconnect. The second is the Western Interconnect, pretty easy to see on the screen. And then anybody from Texas in the room? They like to do their own thing, as you know. They've got their own little grid called ERCOT, and this is a good way to kind of visualize the way these are separated. The point I want to make here, though, and one of the things I'm hearing at this conference over and over is how do we as mountain towns cooperate to make faster progress? And I have really good news for the room. This is the status quo, 37 uncoordinated grids in the West. This is about to change significantly, and I think you'll hear this from Duane as well. We now have regionalization and market options in the West that we've never had before. SPP is offering a product now in the West, and there's been some legislative changes in California that I think will start to enable a second option when it comes to getting rid of this balkanization of the grid. And why is this important? Well, if we don't interconnect the grid, it's very hard to get to 100%. This is something that is deeply enabling. You're going to hear bottom-up stories today of how we use distributed energy resources. We're certainly doing that in Durango and La Plata County and the service territory I get to serve in Southwest Colorado. But there also requires top-down solutions like interconnecting our grids. And 37 separate grids just mean we're not cooperating. So we need to fix that. And why is that important? Well, because of this map. This was made by our friends at NREL. Blue, lots of wind. Yellow, lots of sun. Purple, you get both. And we're in a great spot here in Colorado. We have Class 5 wind and Class 5 solar right next door. But the other thing I want you to see on this map is how the grid is very strong on the coasts and not great strength where we have all of these renewable energy resources. And that's something that we all have a challenge of addressing. And I'm really excited because I live in the Four Corners area and we happen to be at a hub. So the point I want to leave you with is getting to 100% requires bottom-up solutions like distributed energy and batteries, et cetera, and the ability to cooperate across the grid and take advantage of the blue, the yellow, and the purple on this map.
Terrific. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate you framing kind of the overall challenge of we've got to work together. We've got to have, kind of this integrated approach. I'm going to still start smaller, though, and move bigger as we think about these issues. And La Plata is certainly one that's leading on the small scale here. Bryan, you're another one that's leading on the small scale and really thinking about how it is we get to 100%. You've done a lot of innovative things at Holy Cross. What we got there? It looks like,
there we go.
There we go.
We'll go back.
We're going to flip back and forth and make it a little challenging for folks.
Make it work.
Thanks, John. So I'm Bryan Hannegan. I'm president and CEO of Holy Cross Energy. We're like La Plata, an electric cooperative that serves primarily Pitkin, Eagle, and Garfield counties, including the ski hills and mountains at Sunlight, Aspen, Snowmass, Vail, Beaver Creek. So very much involved with our mountain towns and part of that community. And when I arrived in the summer of 2017, the one thing I heard from all of our constituents was we would be making excellent climate progress if it wasn't for the blankety-blank utility. Mm-hmm. Now, that's a common refrain that we hear all over the country, and I'm proud to say that sitting here 8 years on, our utility is no longer the issue. As you can see on this chart, year to date, in 2025, right now, we have averaged 87% of our power supply coming from wind, solar, and hydro associated with battery storage. Now that's double what it was when I began in 2017. So to those of you that say that climate progress can't happen or that it can't happen quickly, we'd like to offer you this real world in Colorado counterexample. The way in which we've gone about it is a 5-part strategy that starts with energy efficiency. You want to solve a problem, make it smaller, so get more energy services out of everything that you use. We've transformed our wholesale power supplies from traditional coal and natural gas to predominantly wind, solar, hydro, and energy storage. We've partnered with our communities on local clean energy resources with energy resilience as well as cost effectiveness in mind. And that includes also partnering with our consumers, our member owners, on distributed resources at their homes and at their businesses. And then let's electrify all the things. You've got a low-cost, low-carbon fuel that is an ideal replacement for transportation, use of fossil fuels, for building use of fossil fuels. And this is where we actually now need your help, mountain towns, to help create the environment for investments in all of these things that will make our electricity go further. We've done this while maintaining system reliability, improving our safety, and maintaining the affordability. Because if you don't have those 3 things, you can't really talk about how clean the power is. If you don't have it, you can't pay for it, or it's not safe to deliver. I will leave you, though, with some thoughts, because when we get into the late stages of the energy transition, the behavior of a clean energy system looks very, very different. This is a chart from last July when we were 80% on average. The colored spaces are the resources that we have. The white space is what we rely on our partners at Xcel Energy as a wholesale customer to fill the gaps. And the white space looks very different to us now. It's far more intermittent, far more difficult to solve for. And that means not more utility scale projects, but more consumer scale projects, more partnerships with our communities, more collaboration, more planning together with utility partners, but with you, the leaders in our communities, the developers of new work. How can we make everything that we do going forward fit for the clean energy future that we all want to have together? So thanks for being here. Thanks for your leadership. And let's get going on this stuff.
Thanks, Bryan. Remarkable progress. And I think especially when we think about that, the issue of affordability, which you all have managed to keep rates almost stable completely as you've decarbonized, which is a model for us all to learn from. I now want to go to the bigger players here. And Duane, I'm going to go to you next specifically because you knit together some of the generation and transmission capacity that's really required for the small guys in the end. Talk to us a little bit about how you respond to the communities that are trying to really move forward to 100% and how you support them along that journey.
Well, thank you, and it's such an honor to be on the stage with all these great utility leaders leading this transition. Tri-State is a poorly named cooperative. We serve in 4 states, so we serve 40 members similar to La Plata Electric and Holy Cross across the panhandle of Nebraska and Wyoming and Colorado and New Mexico. So some of the most beautiful parts of the American West we have the privilege to serve through our members. But we're like the white parts on the graph that Bryan just showed. We're filling in the gaps for our members. So many of our members have local generation projects, but we'll be the power supplier of last resort that's filling in all that other energy. It's really important that we're doing our part to be reliable, affordable, and responsible to the environment. So since 2019, we have been making a very rapid transition on our part of the grid. So we went from a majority coal-based system to today, we're 50% clean energy, wind, hydro, and solar. And by the end of this decade, just a few years away, we'll be at 70% clean energy across all 4 states. And within the state of Colorado, we will have reduced our carbon footprint by 80% from a 2005 baseline, which means all the growth since 2005, and there's been a lot, 100% clean energy for all that growth. And then most of what was done in 2005 is no longer, that energy is no longer served by emitting resources. So it's a very rapid transition, but think about the footprint we serve. We serve in Wyoming, where they think differently about energy than people typically in Colorado and New Mexico, and yet everyone agrees, and the way we're able to make this transition so quickly, everyone agrees on reliable and affordable energy, and we've been able to be so richly blessed with great renewables in the West that we can demonstrate that adding more clean energy actually reduces costs, and we can manage the reliability with a very comprehensive plan. We make sure we keep resources that are available to run when we have to run them, and Bryan alluded to some of that. There's times when you still need fossil fuels just to keep the lights on so people don't die, right? Storm Uri was a horrible event, and we don't want to see that ever happen on the grid where we're turning the power off on purpose. And yet we can get cleaner and cleaner and cleaner, and we've proven that we can, and we can provide our members with greater flexibility over time so that they can do their own local projects. If 70% clean energy is enough for a community, they can add their own local projects under contracts with us and go to even higher levels.
Thanks, Duane. I've often heard the analogy of orchestrating this changing grid as being much more like a symphony, where you pull in the different resources where they make sense. And low-cost renewables wind up being one of the resources that you pull in a lot more, but you still need to have some of the balancing capacity of existing gas generation or others in order to make sure that outcome is harmonious in the end, maybe.
And we're adding, our board just approved this month to add what will be the largest battery project in the state of Colorado, 200 megawatts. And that's going to help manage that. And yet there's still times when you think about Storm Uri, the winter peaks occur at 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. That's when people want to use their energy. And that's not when the sun is shining, right? And it's oftentimes in the coldest times, not when the wind is blowing. So even though we're adding battery capacities, those batteries are not able to run for 5 days straight. And that's why we have to fall back on fossil fuels during those times.
And there are extraordinary advances that are coming, and we'll talk about that here in a little while. But I do want to turn to, I don't know if I want to call you the big gorilla in the room, Andrew, but Xcel is not just a gorilla, it is a mighty gorilla that's been leading the pack here in terms of decarbonization, in terms of your aspirations here. And I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about Xcel's journey and some of your accomplishments so far in dealing with the types of communities that are represented here today.
Well, I appreciate that, John. And yes, we do kind of sometimes get called the 800-pound gorilla. Maybe it's because I get to be the spokesperson at a lot of these events. I'm 6'4", so that's duly named. But again, my name's Andrew Holder. I'm the Director of Community Relations and Local Government Affairs here for Xcel Energy. And I got a couple of stats. There's a lot of numbers on this slide, and I'm going to kind of just go through them briefly. But back in about 2017, 2018, Xcel came out with a bold vision for the future of what our generation fleet is going to look like. We're one of the first utilities in the United States to say that we want to be 80% carbon-free by 2030, and we want to be 100% by 2050. And this was a bold vision. If you look back to where our energy mix looked like in 2017, we were roughly 62 to 68% coal-based and natural gas-based generation onto our grid. So we took a bold step forward and have implemented a number of different plans in front of our commission and with our communities and partnership to really revolutionize the way that we produce energy on any given day. You can kind of see some pinwheels at the bottom left of this slide, and that kind of gives you a snapshot of where we're at current date. You know, this is from last year. We have a number of large-scale projects that are actually under construction right now over on the Eastern Plains. They're some of the largest wind projects going on in the country. And that's going to get us, as we look towards the 2030 mark, that we are projected to be at 88%. You know, some of our folks in regulatory might kick me, but we're projecting that we might be closer to 93% as we get to the end of this decade. You know, and we've done it in a number of different strategies, not only just with the energy generation we have from wind and solar and battery projects, pairing that with natural gas, like my tri-state partners have stated here, to make sure that we keep the grid reliable, but we've also done this affordably. You know, we're anywhere between 15 to 37% below the national average on utility costs, and we take a lot of pride in that because, to Brian's point here, if it's not clean and it's not affordable and it's not reliable, you really don't have, you know, a grid that you're willing to partner with, and that's something that we wake up every morning thinking about. So. At Xcel, we're excited to see what we do. You know, we have a vision to get to 2030, but I think it's conferences and groups like the Mountain Towns that are going to help us partner together to get that last 10% as we look towards 2050 and move into the next decades.
So amazing. We've got 4 leaders here in how exactly we're transitioning pretty rapidly toward a heavily decarbonized grid. I'm gonna call on the 2 small guys to begin with to share one.
They're
not
small.
They're nothing about stature. This is just about.
I'm not 6'4", though. Let's just say that. Right away.
But punch above their weight. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
If we could think about 1 or 2 innovations that you want to share that have been key to you making progress within your systems here, Chris or Bryan, you know, just. I think people love to hear stories, something that you've invested in that's helped you in your aspirations.
Yeah, I'll kick it off. I mean, I think you're going to hear some repeated themes. For us in Southwest Colorado, a couple of initial strategies. Access local hydro. We've done that. We've just signed a contract with local hydro for a long-term 10-year contract. And then batteries and solar. Work great in our system. We've got about 25 megawatts of rooftop, which is in the context of a 160 megawatt system. So that is a great running start to getting ourselves to 100% clean. And then we're adding grid scale projects and community solar gardens and batteries along with that at the substation level. And the cost effectiveness of that now is really compelling, provides a lot of value to our members, and we're going to just be accelerating that from now to 2030.
I think for us, the next chapter is going to involve distributed energy resources in a big way, including especially smart buildings. In 2019, working with Habitat for Humanity in the Roaring Fork Valley, we put together 4 homes and an affordable housing project called Basalt Vista that included all-electric, net zero design and construction and appliances and so on. 2019, mind you, and we started working with the homeowners to interact directly with their energy storage, with their EV charging, with their solar, with their heat pumps, with their water heaters. And we kind of got this notion that the last 10 or 20% on all of our charts is going to come through working directly with our consumers, working directly with our communities, and being able to fast forward that now into a very active battery storage program where we offer battery storage to any of our co-op members who want it, and we actually pay them a monthly bill credit that they can use against the cost of their financed battery. We pay them a monthly bill credit for the right to use their battery as a grid asset. Co-ops are all about people helping people. Communities are all about people helping people. I don't know a better example of people helping people than my battery helping Andrew throw a huge party that maybe he'll invite me over to attend to so he can use even more of my battery when I'm not home.
Well, as one of the members of your co-op, I appreciate that. And I've got a battery in my garage, and it's not supporting Andrew's party, but more, I think of it as sharing a cup of sugar, right, with my neighbors. And
it's a cup of electrons.
It's a cup of electrons that we're sharing in the neighborhood and helping drive down everybody's costs in the process.
Please don't touch the electrons.
Don't touch the electrons, folks. So we've heard distributed generation and thinking about how we get out in the community more as being really critical to get to that last 10%. There, at the larger scale, right, we have bigger planning challenges on how do we, I think Chris aptly pointed to the need for us to think in systems here to get to a highly renewable grid in the end. You know, Duane, on your side, and Andrew, you're thinking about transmission, you're thinking about planning. What are the key unlocks for you when you think about how we share at scale across the system?
I mean, there's two things I'd highlight. One is a tariff we just had approved at FERC recently. We call creatively BYOR, bring your own resource. And it allows those communities that want to be greener than what we can get to sponsor an asset, sponsor a wind farm, sponsor a solar project. We just had a solicitation for another 300 megawatts, and 11 of our member co-ops partnered together, again, working together on 5 projects that are going to make their energy even greener than the average tri-state system. That's one. But the other, on the even bigger picture, is the idea of a regional transmission organization that couldn't coordinate and integrate renewables across an even broader area than our system. So by utilities banding together and turning control of the grid over to a grid operator such as Southwest Power Pool or further west versus California ISO, we can actually be much more efficient in how we schedule generation and much more efficient about how we move power across broad geographic areas and then move into a regional transmission planning construct. Instead of each utility doing its plan, now we're talking about the entire grid being planned as a common asset and figuring out where the lines are needed to allow that power to flow so that we can build that renewable project out somewhere where the sun's shining really great, but maybe there's no people, and get it to where the people are. So we are really excited that Southwest Power Pool will start managing some of the western grid in Colorado and in Wyoming starting in April of next year, and we're hoping to see that expand further. At the same time, California ISO is moving eastward out of California, and we'll start managing more of the grid there. Eventually, we're going to come together and drive a golden spike in the ground, and there'll be a seam there. But we'll manage those seams, and the grid will be a better place for everyone once we have that in place. A common market and a common regional planning construct.
I think that's a good point. Here at Xcel, we have a great benefit and a great responsibility because we really look at it through a fully integrated lens. Not only do we have our own generation assets, we are also a transmission company, but we're also a local distribution center. So we really get a look at it through 3 different buckets to make sure that the grid, is kind of really tackling this issue in 3 different phases. From a large scale, I echo a lot of the thoughts that were already kind of provided here. I think being able to tap in and building some of the larger transmission, and tying into some of the other markets potentially, but really tapping into the Eastern Plains, which is some of the best wind resources and solar resources in the country, and bringing those, from a generations aspect of building the transmission to get that to where the load is here on the Front Range and up into our mountain communities, but also at the local level. Really partnering with our communities. We have several pilot initiatives in particular that we're moving forward with. I'll highlight one just because it's been in the news, of recent, which is the Pearl Street project, which is in downtown Boulder, where we're going to fully electrify the grid. And that's an exciting opportunity to not only work with our local municipalization, but also our local partners, our chambers, and our business owners to really take an opportunity for them to look at their energy bill, how they interact with their utility, and come together to make a project work.
Terrific. Amazing stories here. We've set some time aside here for your questions here. We've got 4 utility executives that are intimate with the transition here. The first hand to go up was right over there, so I'm going to give, let's see, you're ready to go, so go ahead, ma'am, if you.
Thank you, gentlemen. I am Megan Moore-Kemp from Mountain Parks Electric. We're a co-op that serves north central Colorado. For those of us working in the energy industry, and I'm willing to bet those in the adjacent space, the politicization of energy is acute right now. And it definitely makes it interesting to do our jobs on a good day, really challenging on a hard day. So for those of us who are serving politically and economically diverse communities, do you have advice for us regarding how to navigate that in this time? Thank you.
Yeah, at Holy Cross, we've got the entire political spectrum. If you think about the politics of Pitkin in some parts of Eagle County, you think about Garfield County politics in the state of Colorado, our demographics look like the United States. And the one thing that everybody likes is they like electricity. They like electricity being on. They like electricity being safe, right? Safely delivered, not starting wildfires, taking care of the community. And they like electricity bills that are affordable. And I think if you do those three things and you do them extremely well, then you earn the social license to start talking about, can we do it in a cleaner and more sustainable way? Not just with respect to climate change, but with air, water, land resources. Building infrastructure disturbs the environment around us. That conversation is much easier to have if it's rooted in the facts and in the information. And a lot of times people say, well, you can't do all of the above. I hope I showed you a minute ago. Well, we are, and it's our lived experience. And it may not be the same experience that everybody else has right now, but that doesn't mean that you can't have it going forward. And so I would just say you get out, you communicate, you go have coffee, or as we call it, brought some kilowatts with your little, areas, and you just share the experience and invite people in, and you'd be surprised at what middle ground you can find.
I just
One other, yeah,
everybody
Duane.
agrees on reliability and affordability, and green energy can provide both those things. So it's just a matter of education and sharing the story. And if people can listen to you for more than 30 seconds, you can start to share. I just returned from DC, and I got more than 30 seconds. I didn't get complete satisfaction with some of the policymakers, but we're telling our story, and we just got to keep sharing. It truly can be reliable and affordable.
Great, if we could.
Yeah, Aaron with Millig Design Build. Quick question, do you guys have any kind of data or forecasting ability to kind of understand the blend between investment dollars on your end into your own infrastructure for renewable technology versus providing those to your customers to generate their own power?
Yeah, I can jump in on that one. I think as the co-op, we're going to do our own projects. I described a few of those. That's probably going to end up being about 20% of our portfolio by the end of the decade, or early 2030s. We're going to do a lot of PPAs, power purchase agreements. So we're going to buy power. In fact, we're buying power from Tri-State for part of our needs and other providers. And then we're going to partner with our members, as Bryan is describing. So batteries, rooftop solar, other distributed energy resources, heat pumps that we can control via the grid, batteries that we can dispatch as needed, right? There's all these ways to cooperate, and we're going to be investing in that locally as well. So, as a percent basis, we're going to try to be the conductor and bring the symphony together, but we're going to be looking for investment from lots of different pockets, from our members, from developers of projects, and then do our own projects internally, and those three bring those together.
No, I think it's a great question, and I echo a lot of the things that Chris kind of just highlighted there. I think it's going to be, I don't necessarily have data from that, but from the investment standpoint, we're looking at partnering with local communities, looking at local or federal tax incentives that can potentially help lower the incentive for investment. The other thing that, especially from a large utility like Xcel, is the ability to issue debt at a very cost-effective way for our ratepayers. And that's what's able to really been able to transition our grid in particular. With being a financially healthy utility allows us to issue a significant amount of debt. Over the next 5 years, if you've seen, or you can go to the Xcel Energy website, we're looking at investing nearly $22 billion worth of infrastructure in the state of Colorado over the next 5 years. And that's everything from local distribution, gas infrastructure projects to keep that safe and reliable, but also large-scale energy generation projects. And the ability to do so is being able to issue debt at a large scale, at a cost-effective way for our ratepayers and for our communities to make sure that we can continue to move forward. And then you couple that with, some local incentives that our communities can also do, then also some of the rebates that we can offer. It's truly like a symphony of partnership to make that move forward.
John, I just want to say quickly that traditionally we have all thought of investments as a least cost strategy, where we just take the lowest cost no matter what. I think as you start to get into the latter stages of this energy transition, it's going to be more about best value, right? It might be worth a little bit more or you might have to pay a little bit more for something, but if it can also make your local communities more resilient, harden against the risk of wildfire, provide some more capacity to help economic development, you might pay more for technology B that provides all of those things than technology A that's simply the cheapest. And so I wouldn't look at the past necessarily and say, oh, this is how the investments are going to be. Particularly for us now, we're almost going to be exclusively focused on small scale in the community, working in partnerships with folks like you.
Well, fantastic. We unfortunately are out of time for our questions here. I know each of our members of the panel are going to be available during the break in order, if you have more questions, feel free to swarm them and they will absolutely kind of offer their perspectives. I do want to close though with one question. This is a community that comes together here and wants to be involved and engaged. And for you as executives leading individual utilities, what's the one thing that you want them to know about how to engage you to better solve for this clean, affordable, sustainable, resilient solution that we need, that all of us need in order to prosper in our respective communities? What's the one thing they can do? And Chris, I'll just go left.
Yeah, I'll just kind of pick up on that theme we talked about. We're trying to partner with our members of every shape and size. We have Purgatory Ski Resort down to the individual home in the middle of Durango, trying to figure out what works best for that member, maximize their efficiency, get rid of demand charges, all the things that we're trying to do to provide value for our members and reduce emissions along the way. That is, I think, the path forward. That's the map.
Thanks. Duane.
Share your story. Don't be shy to share it. Don't just complain about how things are. Go talk to the people who are making the decisions. And sometimes you'll make a difference. Not always, but sometimes you really will. And our door's always open, member-owned cooperative. Many of you are probably our members, and so we work for you, those of us that are in public power. Yeah.
No, I think I'll just summarize it. We've Xcel Energy over the last 18 months have gone through a really big brand shift, and the big catch line is we want to make energy work better for you. And that takes a two-way dialogue. So we are open to have conversations. We need a lot of thought leadership as we start getting into these next decades. And I would encourage everyone to embolden your experience, your leadership, your expertise, because it's going to take all of us in this room and around the country to get this figured out.
Yes, come and tell us what you want and work with us on that. But more importantly, make the hard decisions yourself. We are taking care of electricity, 1/3 of the carbon economy. The transportation, the buildings, the commercial, the industrial, that's up to you and your elected leaders. And so we need a commensurate effort on that side of the climate challenge to match what we in the state of Colorado are really making progress on the electricity side.
And on that note, I will say there are ways that we can electrify more and faster, right? And what we've seen here from 4 different cases is that we can build grids that are affordable, that are resilient, that in the end are able to meet the reliability needs of every community, and in the end also support the growth in industry, in electrification of vehicles, or of heating and ventilation systems, or of increased AI and some of the new industries that will be coming in. And so this is the workhorse in the end of how it is we solve issues like climate change and economic growth. And I'd just like to thank our 4 panelists for sharing their personal experiences and showcasing that, listen, if we can get to 90%, which we already clearly have examples of it, 100% is still within reach, and we all need to be striving for that level. Thank you all.